afternoon, everyone. What a time to meet again. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, covenant family. Shalom, my viewers. Shalom, my listeners. I bring you greetings in the name of our Father, Creator, Yahweh, and from His Son, Yahushua HaMashiach, our Messiah. What a wonderful time to meet again and look deep into scriptures. Once again, I am Ika Benson Eddy, bringing to you scriptural truths for your spiritual growth and impartation. I also want to bring you greetings from a local assembly saturated assembly of Yahweh. Today, like we could see in the flyer that has been on, we've scheduled this time of the day for the topic, Messiah is the goal of the Torah. Messiah is the goal of the Torah. Messiah is the goal of the Torah. Before we proceed properly into this topic, it is important for us to understand that our Messiah is the Son of Yahweh, and in the person of Yahushua HaMashiach. He is the Messiah, and He is the goal of the Torah. In order to move forward, it is important for us to also understand that the word Torah means law. It also means instruction. So, as we proceed to the topic properly, we've been able to identify that the Messiah is Yahushua HaMashiach, and that Torah is law or instruction. Having understood these two concepts that is embedded in the topic, Messiah is the goal of the Torah. It is proper for us to proceed now to give a proper framework to this topic and to give careful analysis and breakdown to this topic so that we all will be able to understand properly this topic. I appreciate those that are listening to this live right now, those that will listen later on. I pray that by the Spirit of Yahweh, Ruach HaKodesh, that understanding will be given to those who search for the truth and have their heart open to know this truth. Yahweh himself, by his Spirit that he has given to us, through his Spirit, give us understanding. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. Messiah is the goal of the Torah. Sometimes a verse can be so often misquoted as a proof text that it begins to take on a life of its own, bearing a theological slogan completely disconnected from its original context and Hebraic meaning. One of these clearest examples is Romans chapter 10, verse 4. Reading from maybe other scriptures like King James, it says, "For Messiah is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes." Romans 10, 4. This verse is commonly used to teach, one, that the law is finished. It is commonly used to teach, two, that Torah no longer matters. It is commonly used to teach, three, that Messiah abolishes the commandment. And it is also commonly used to teach that grace replaced obedience. But that is not what Paul was teaching, also known as Shor in Hebrew. The entire meaning of Romans 10:4 depends on one Greek word. And that Greek word is telos. T-E-L-O-S. Telos. So the entire meaning of Romans 10:4 depends on that Greek word, telos. The Greek word is translated as end. The Greek word end is telos. It does not primarily mean destruction. Telos does not primarily mean cancellation. Telos does not primarily mean abolition. And it does not primarily mean termination. No. It more deeply means goal. It more deeply means aim. It more deeply means purpose. It more deeply means fulfillment. It more deeply means climax. It more deeply means destination. And more deeply means consummation. Let's look at the meaning of telos. Telos has a Greek numbering of G5056. The Greek numbering for telos is G5056. So when you go to the Strong Dictionary or the lexical summary of the word, we could see telos as end, purpose, goal, completion, fulfillment. So the word origin, from a primary word meaning, is to set out for a definite point or goal. To set out for a definite point or goal. Proper meaning: the point aimed at, the intended purpose, the consummation of a process, the mixture, completion of something. So, Romans 10:4 can rightly be understood as Messiah is the goal of the Torah unto righteousness. Messiah is the goal of the Torah unto righteousness. This rendition is in Yah scripture. That's how it is put in Yah scripture and some other Hebrew text. Not its destruction, not its cancellation, but its intended revelation and fulfillment. Let's look at Romans 10:4 properly understood. Romans 10:4, for Messiah is the goal of the Torah unto righteousness to everyone who believes. So Saul, known as Paul, is not making a negative statement about Torah. He is explaining where Torah was always leading. He's explaining where Torah was always leading. The Torah was never an end in itself. The law was never an end in itself. It was always prophetic. It was always messianic. It was always covenantal. It was always transformational. The Torah was designed to lead humanity towards Messiah. The law was designed to lead humanity toward Messiah. Let's look at other scriptures using the word telos. The meaning of telos becomes clearer when we examine how the same word is used elsewhere in Scripture. 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 5, and it reads, "Now the goal," the Greek word used there is telos, used for goal. "Now the goal of this command is love from a clean heart, from a good conscience, and sincere faith." So we could see from that verse of Scripture of 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 5 that the word goal used there, the Greek word is telos. The commandment was not abolished. Its intended outcome was love. Its intended outcome was love. Romans chapter 6 verse 21 to 22. It reads, "For the end," the word used there is also telos, "of those things is death." But the end, the word used again for end is telos. But the end, everlasting life. Here, telos means final outcome. Here, telos means destination. Here, telos means result. Let's go a little further. James chapter 5, verse 11. That verse of Scripture says, "You have seen the purpose." The Greek word used for purpose here is telos. So you have seen the purpose of Yahweh. Again, purpose. Intended design. Divine objective. Thus, Romans chapter 10 verse 4 is saying Messiah is the intended objective of Torah. Messiah is the intended objective of Torah. The Torah always pointed to Messiah. The Torah was never merely a legal code. It was, 1, a prophetic structure. 2, a shadow system. 3, a covenant revelation. 4, a priestly blueprint. And 5, a kingdom constitution. Every major part of Torah points towards Messiah. Every major part of Torah points towards Messiah. Let's look at some of the major parts. 1, the sacrificial system pointed to Messiah. I will explain. The animal sacrifice could never permanently remove sin. Hebrews 10:4. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and goats could take away sins. The sacrifice functioned as 1, prophetic rehearsals. The sacrifice functioned as temporal coverings. 3, it functions as shadows of greater atonement. So Messiah becomes the reality, the sacrifice anticipated. Messiah becomes the reality, the sacrifice anticipated. John chapter 1 verse 29. Behold, the Lamb of Aloha, who takes away the sins of the world. So the Messiah becomes the reality, the sacrifice anticipated. Let's look at another part of the Torah that points towards the Messiah. 2. The priesthood pointed to Messiah. The priesthood pointed to Messiah. I will explain. The Levitical priesthood mediated between Aloha and humanity. But it was limited because 1. Priest dies. It was limited because 2. Sacrifice repeated continually. And 3. Access remained restricted. Access remained restricted. Messiah fulfilled the priesthood as 1. Eternal high priest. 2. Perfect mediator. 3. Living access to the Father. Hebrews chapter 7 verse 24 to 25. Because he continues forever, he has an unchangeable priesthood. The priesthood reaches its telos in him. The priesthood reaches its telos in him. We have looked at 2 parts of the Torah that points towards the Messiah already. Let's look at the 3rd part of the Torah that points towards the Messiah. The feast pointed to Messiah. That's the 3rd part of the Torah that points to the Messiah. The feast is what we know as the Moedim. M-O-E-D-I-M. The Moedim were prophetic rehearsals. Let's look at the Moedim, the feast. 1. Passover. Passover represents the Messiah's death. The Messiah dies as the lamb. So he becomes the Passover lamb. 1 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 7. For indeed, Messiah, our Passover, was sacrificed for us. Let's look at another feast, because there are about 7 feasts of Yahweh. Let's look at the 2nd feast. We have the feast, the Moedim, of feast of unleavened bread. This is a representation of his sinless body. His sinless body rests in the grave. The unleavened bread represents the sinless body of the Messiah resting in the grave. Let's look at the 3rd Moedim. First fruit. First fruit, which is a representation of resurrection. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 20. Messiah has risen from the dead and become the first fruits. So let's look at the fourth feast of Yahweh, also known as the fourth Moedim. Shavuot, which we just finished celebrating not too long. I think I've done an extensive work on this topic of Shavuot. So the fourth Moedim or fourth feast is Shavuot, the outpouring of Ruach HaKodesh, Acts chapter 2. Then the fifth feast is the Feast of Trumpets. The Feast of Trumpets is fulfilled in the Messiah, which is the kingly announcement. The sixth feast of Yahweh that is fulfilled in Yahushua, the Messiah, is the Day of Atonement, which is the final cleansing and judgment. The seventh feast. The seventh feast, or the seventh Moedim, is the Feast of Tabernacles. Allah dwelling with humanity. Revelation chapter 21, verse 3. Behold, the tabernacle of Allah is with men. The festivals were prophetic shadows of Messiah's work. We have looked at the third part of the Torah that points towards Messiah, which we just talked about now, which is the feast that pointed towards Messiah. Let's look at the fourth part of the Torah that points towards Messiah. The kingship pattern pointed to Messiah. The kingship pattern pointed to Messiah. I will explain. Adam failed. Moses foreshadowed. David partially reflected. So Messiah fulfills true prophets, true priests, and true king. The Messiah fulfills true prophets, true priests, and true king. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15. Yahweh, your Allah, will raise up for you a prophet like me. So that's true prophets. Luke chapter 1, verse 32 and 33. He will reign over the house of Jacob, which is Jacob forever. So the entire covenant narrative converges in Messiah. No wonder Revelation chapter 1, verse 5 and 6 talks about He has made us priests and kings. He has made us king and priest unto Yahweh. So the kingship pattern pointed to the Messiah. The Messiah fulfilled true prophets, he fulfilled true priests, and fulfilled true king. Let's look at Paul's context in Romans chapter 9 to Romans 11. Romans 10 cannot be isolated from Romans 9 to Romans 11. Shaul, also known as Paul, is grieving that many in Yazareh in Israel pursued Torah incorrectly. Romans 10, 2 to 3. He says, they have a zeal for Allah, but not according to knowledge. So because they have a zeal for Allah, but not according to knowledge, they pursued 1. Covenant identity without faith. They pursued 2. External obedience without transformation. They pursued 3. Self-righteousness instead of surrender. The issue was never Torah itself. The issue was using Torah as a ladder to establish self-righteousness. Messiah becomes the goal because he reveals 1. What Torah truly means. He reveals what Torah truly means. That's why the Messiah becomes the goal of the Torah. 2. He reveals what righteousness truly is. And 3. He reveals what covenant obedience was always intended to produce. As we proceed, let's look at another concept that is being explained from these verses of scripture. Torah is Kodesh. Torah is holy. Paul never thought that Torah was evil. Paul never thought that Torah was abolished. Romans chapter 7, verse 12. Therefore, the law is Kodesh. The law is holy. And the commandment is Kodesh. The commandment is holy and righteous and good. That's Paul's words. Speaking about the Torah. The Torah can, 1, reveal sin. The Torah can, 2, define righteousness. The Torah can expose rebellion. But it cannot transform the fallen heart by itself. I'll go over that again. The Torah can reveal sin. The Torah can define righteousness. The Torah can expose rebellion. But it cannot transform the fallen heart by itself. That transformation comes through 1, faith, 2, spirit empowerment, and 3, inner regeneration. To explain this deeper, let's look at the concept Jeremiah and Ezekiel. Let's look at the concept prophesied in Jeremiah and Ezekiel. The prophets never taught abolition of Torah. They taught internalization of Torah. Jeremiah 31:33. I will put my Torah in their minds and write it on their hearts. Ezekiel 36:26-27. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes. Messiah is not replacing Torah. He is enabling its true fulfillment. He is enabling its true fulfillment within transformed people. He is enabling its true fulfillment within transformed people. To give a deeper understanding a little, let's look at the concept Messiah as the living Torah. John chapter 1 verse 14. And the word became flesh. And the word became flesh. In Hebraic thought, I've told us that Hebraic means the language of the Hebrews in which scripture is written. So, when you say Hebraic thought, you are simply saying the Hebrew language in which scripture is written and how it is reasoned. So, in Hebraic thought, 1. Torah is the revealed instruction of Allah. 2. Messiah is the embodied revelation of Allah. Meaning, Messiah lives perfectly what Torah described. What this simply means is that Messiah lives perfectly what Torah described. He is Torah in human form. He is Torah in human form. He is righteousness embodied. He is covenant faithfulness incarnate. The written Torah becomes visible in a living person. Having given this analysis, we could see that the word end cannot mean abolition. If Romans 10:4 meant Torah has completely ended, then Paul would contradict 1. The prophets, 2. Messiah's own teaching, 3. His own writings. Let's go a little further. Matthew chapter 5 verse 17. Do not think that I come to abolish the law and the prophets. This is the Messiah speaking. Paul himself continued. One, in keeping the feasts. He continued in keeping the feast. He continued in attending synagogue. He continued in honoring Torah. Acts chapter 21 verse 24. That you yourself also walk orderly and keep the law. This is Paul speaking. The issue was never Torah itself. The issue was relying on Torah observance as a means of any righteousness. The issue was never Torah itself. The issue was relying on Torah observance as a means of any righteousness. I'll explain a little further. Peter warned about twisting Paul's letters, Paul's words. 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 16 and 17. Those who are untaught and unstable twist Paul's writing to their own destruction, being led away with the error of the lawless. From that verse of scripture, we could see that Peter warned that Paul's writings would be misunderstood by people promoting lawlessness. Romans 10:4 is one of the most commonly twisted examples. Let's look at the deeper covenant mystery. The deeper covenant mystery. Torah was always designed to produce 1. Covenant union. 2. Set apartness, also known as holiness. 3. Kingdom identity. 4. Likeness to Allah. But humanity lacked 1. Transformed nature. They lacked it. 2. Spiritual power. They lacked it. 3. Inner circumcision. Humanity lacked it. So Messiah accomplishes 1. Atonement. Messiah accomplishes 2. Spirit empowerment. Messiah accomplishes covenant renewal. And 4. He accomplishes heart transformation. Therefore, Messiah is Torah's destination. Therefore, Messiah is Torah's destination. The Torah was the road. Messiah is the arrival. The Torah was the road. Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, is the arrival. In moving further a little, let's look at the 3 dimensions of Romans 10:4. The 3 dimensions of it. Let's look at it. Number 1 dimension is the prophetic dimension of Romans 10:4. I explain. The Torah prophetically anticipated Messiah. So, the Torah was prophetically anticipating the Messiah. Another dimension of Romans 10:4 is covenant dimension. I'll talk a little. Covenant dimension. The Messiah established the renewal covenant. The Messiah established the renewed covenant promised by the prophets. He established it. I think I've talked on that when I was talking extensively about the Feast of Shavuot. Check my video on that topic and you will understand the covenant dimension that has to do with covenant renewal. So the third dimension of Romans 10:4 was transformational dimension. Messiah empowers believer to live the righteousness Torah described. Torah was describing a righteousness, but it was Messiah that now empowered the assembly, the believers, to live the righteousness that the Torah was describing. These are the three dimensions of Romans 10:4. The prophetic dimension, the covenant dimension, and the transformational dimension. Final summary. Romans 10:4 does not teach abolition of Torah. Romans 10:4 does not teach rejection of obedience. Romans 10:4 does not teach cancellation of Allah's instruction. Romans 10:4 does not teach freedom of life lawlessly. It does not teach it. It does not teach freedom of living lawlessly. It does not. What does it teach? It teaches Messiah is the Torah's goal. It teaches Messiah is the Torah's fulfillment. It teaches Messiah is the climax. It teaches Messiah living expression. So in a nutshell, Messiah is the Torah's goal, is the Torah's fulfillment, is the climax, and living expression. This can be clearly seen in the transfiguration that occurred, in which Yahushua HaMashiach was standing. Moses was standing on one side and representing the law as the lawgiver, and Elijah was standing on the other side representing the prophets, and the two of them were speaking to the Torah as a person. Two of them were speaking to the Messiah. They were having a discussion with the Messiah at the transfiguration. And after a while, the two of them emptied themselves in the Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach. And at the end of it, there was a glory that was reflected by the Messiah at Mount Transfiguration, that the disciples that were present had to quickly bow their head. So this entire analysis that we have been talking about since could be explained with that pictorial transfiguration encounter. So the Torah was never meant to terminate in legalism. It was meant to lead humanity into one covenant relationship. It was meant to lead humanity into transformed hearts. It was meant to lead humanity into spirit-empowered obedience. And it was made to lead humanity into union with Messiah himself. So, the verse is not Torah is over. It is Torah has reached its intended revelation in Messiah. When you read the Torah, it should point you to the Messiah. When you read about Messiah, he should point you back to the Torah. John chapter 5, verse 39. I wrap up with this verse. These are they which testify of me. So, more importantly, Romans 10:4 was deeply saying that the Messiah is the goal of the Torah. It never meant that it was the end of the Torah. It meant that it was the goal of the Torah. By this understanding, the Ruach HaKodesh, the set apart spirit of Yahweh, we explain in deeper dimension of this teaching into your heart as you brood over it, as you think over it, as you search the scriptures, and as you lay to sleep. Thank you for listening. Let me try to see if there are questions for me to respond to before I end this live. There are questions for me to respond to before I end this live. It is important for us when we read scripture, when we study scriptures, that we take our time to do deeper understanding of it, deeper research into these scriptures, rather than reading shallow. Reading it at surface level or shallow level. Yes, in the absence of no questions, I want to appreciate everyone that took out time to join me in this live. And those that are going to watch the video later, I appreciate you, and I pray that the spirit of Yahweh, the Ruach HaKodesh, who is our teacher, will teach you in deeper dimension this subject that have been treated today, and give you deeper understanding of His word as you go into scriptures to check for yourself, like the Berean will always do. You search and check for yourself the truth of scriptures. Thank you. and remain Barak.